Kikubor ka Batesi TV. Lawan Rashapi ka Frank Motors, the all-new Altros. Now, with more exciting features. Ka any ride, ka app ban book taxi bat bike, ban pensuk ya ka let kawan katkum ka jingdon kam jongpi, namar bangi nyokor ya ka por jongpi. Download ya ka niga app na ka Play Store.
Ka IZ Group of Institution Bangalore, kadai ka college babahatam nagabanta ka jingkuli nursing but paramedical course, hospital training, hinyo scholarship but 6% ka kam, haki hospital bahedo India but shabari. Nabanta ka jingkuli ka jingsiyo ka barit but hila ban legu ban kuli da ka education loan. Hila aru ban syukola ho number kandai nyo saw san riu pranot. Lani kandai pran riu laisan, arn riu kandai pra.
International Day of the World's Indigenous People falls on August 9th, as this was the day of the first meeting in 1982 of the United Nations Working Group of Indigenous Population of Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities of the Commission on Human Rights. When we talk of indigenous people, various thoughts comes to our mind. First, we must realize the expression indigenous people has a very important connotation and meaning in each and every people living in northeastern part of the country. It has a special significance as far as we are concerned. Now, who are indigenous people? Mr. Sadan Blah, he has given a very brief account of what is the context of indigenous people under the Indian Constitution and in this contemporary statutory framework. The word original inhabitant, indigenous people of Assam and natives are somewhat synonymous. Indigenous people, also known as the first people, aboriginal people, native people, or autochthonous people are ethnic groups who are the original inhabitants of a given region, in contrast to groups that have settled, occupied, or colonized the area more recently. Groups are usually described as indigenous when they maintain tradition or other aspects of an early culture that is associated with a given region. Since indigenous people are often faced with threats to their sovereignty, economic well-being, and their access to the resources on which their culture depends, political rights have been set forth in international law by international organizations such as UNO, the United International Labour Organization, World Bank, etc. The United Nations has issued a declaration on the right of the indigenous people, that is, UNDRIP, to guide the member state national policies to collective rights of the indigenous people such as culture, identity, language, access to people, employment, health, education, and natural resources. Estimate puts the total population of indigenous people from about 220 million to 350 million throughout. James Sana, former special reporter in the rights of indigenous people, has defined indigenous people as living descendants of a pre-invasion inhabitants of lands now dominated by others. That's why I say this expression, apart from the content and the meaning it carries, it also carries a special reference to our lifestyle with the people of Northeast India. They are culturally distinct groups that find themselves engulfed by other settler societies born of force of unparalleled conquest. Mr. Sadhanla referred to the recent move of the ruling central regime to introduce UCC in the country. It will be a disaster for small communities living in northeastern parts of the country. We must realize that we are governed by a constitution. Ours is a unity in diversity. Therefore, that delicate balance which is required has to be maintained at all costs. Friends, what is happening in Manipur today is very unfortunate. You will realize, you will appreciate the mistrust which has set in. It will continue for decades. God knows when the differences will be buried. And we'll see Metis and Cookies joining hands and maintaining their original relationship. We all know who are the people responsible for inciting these violences. Therefore, the trust of the majoritarian rule, which is being conceived at some level to introduce a particular language and trusting a language upon us, is something we'll have to withstand. We'll have to fight it out, we'll see, we'll cross the bridge when it comes to it. But we must be prepared for it. Things are not very far away. These are in the offing. We, in the northeastern part of India, we must always realize we will have to defend ourselves. So therefore, this agenda, indigenous youth as agent of change for self-determination, is very significant. Please don't give much emphasis on the last word, self-determination. At times, some people may like to give a wrong meaning to it. In any case, the United Nations Charter do recognize the right of the indigenous people to pursue their right of self-determination. That's a very touchy subject. Let us not dwell more on that. On the contrary, I would like to appeal to the youth of the Northeast. Be self-reliant. Empower yourself. Concentrate on your studies. If you're undertaking a vocation, do pursue it very sincerely. Appear in All India Competitive Examination. Try to get a part in the Indian Administrative Service, Indian Police Service. Then you can set a model for the others to emulate. Therefore, when we talk of self-determination, we should not forget the other aspects which I have indicated. But our problem is slightly different, which I would like to dwell. Now, the Indian government, I don't think has recognized the use of the expression indigenous people in India. Even the Constitution speaks of scheduled tribe, Adivasi, but it does not refer to indigenous people. Now, as far as perhaps you all know, in 1957, International Labour Organization, which predates the United Nations, was the first UN agency to adopt an international treaty on the rights of indigenous people, that is ILO number 107, concerning protection and integration of indigenous and other tribal and semi-tribal populations in independent countries in 1957. India ratified ILO Convention 107 on 29th of September 1958, regularly submitted reports, and one fine morning, Ministry of External officials woke up to find that there are no indigenous people in the country. In the meanwhile, the ILO revised Convention number 107 and adopted Convention number 169 concerning indigenous and tribal people in the independent countries. India refused to ratify ILO Convention of 169 until today. This refusal has nothing to do with history or laws operating in the field. So the net result is, today, Government of India is not a party to ILO. Therefore, the predicament. Now, having said about the India's position, ILO and other United Nations decisions, now let us see what the Indian legal framework is. Article 339 of the Constitution of India, relating to control of Union over administration of the scheduled areas and welfare areas of scheduled tribes stated, I'm quoting, President may at any time and shall at the expiration of tenure from the commencement of this Constitution by order appoint a commission to report on the administration of scheduled areas and welfare of the scheduled tribes in the states. The order may define composition, power and procedure of the commission and may contain such incidental or ancillary power as the President may consider necessary or desirable. As instructed by Article 339(1), which is different from the executive, legislative or judicial decision of any government, the Government of India established Scheduled Areas and Scheduled Tribes Commission in 60, headed by Sri Evan Dever as the chairperson. In its report on 14 October 61, the Commission defined scheduled tribes in the following terms. Except clearly declaring that the scheduled tribes are the tribes or the tribal communities or parts of a group within tribals or tribal communities, which President may specify by public notification, that is under Article 342. As these groups are presumed to form the oldest ethnological sector of the population, the term Adivasi has become current among certain people. The International Labour Organization has classified such people as indigenous. It is clear that in India in 1961 itself, before the UN started the debate on discrimination against indigenous people, in 70 had accepted the scheduled tribe as the indigenous people as they are presumed to form the oldest ethnological sector of the population. In this context, it may be noted while the Government of India refers to indigenous population as scheduled tribes, Adivasis has become the popular term for India's indigenous or tribal people. In Sanskrit, the word meaning original people. Contrary to the official government position, this term reflects the widely recognized fact that people in question are earliest known settlers on the Indian subcontinent and the northeast India. The indigenous or tribal people of northeast region, that's the 7 states, 7 sisters, do not call themselves, nor they normally refer to in literature as Adivasis, in spite of the fact that meaning of the term very much applies to the respective people. Representatives of these people prefer to use the English term indigenous people. This fact deserves to be kept in mind while attempting to define the original inhabitants of northeastern India. The Honorable Supreme Court in Kairadas versus State of Maharashtra reported in 2011 1 SSC 793 observed, I quote, "Wills are probably the descendants of some original inhabitants of India, known as aborigines or scheduled tribes Adivasis, who presently comprise only of 8% of the population of India. The rest 92% of the population of India consists of descendants of immigrants. Thus, India is broadly a country of immigrants like North America. So friends, I have given a background of what constitutes indigenous people in the Indian context, how the UNO regards them, and how the Indian Constitution regards them. Be it indigenous or be it Adivasis. We are people, we have our own problems. So our problem, what is our problem? Now, when we try to address the issue of indigenous youth as an agent of change for self-determination, I would like to put a caveat to this. My first concern is, unless I can protect my language, culture and script, I cannot give any able leadership to my community. Do you agree with me? So what is of utmost importance is, first we must be in a position to protect ourselves. Now it is Indian Constitution Article 29 which says, it is the fundamental right of every section of citizen to protect their language, culture and script. There is a judgment, constitutional decision of the Supreme Court, Jagdev Singh Siddhanti, where the Honorable Supreme Court has said, unlike other fundamental right guaranteed under Article 29 is unqualified. In other words, for example, our right to freedom of speech, etc., in respect of them, there can be reasonable restrictions put by law. But insofar as the enjoyment of our fundamental right under Article 29 is concerned, that is the right to preserve and conserve our language, culture and script, it is unqualified. In other words, there cannot be even any reasonable restriction. Therefore, first we'll have to protect ourselves. Because if we have concern regarding protection of our own identity, then it becomes very difficult to pursue any other activity. For example, I'll give an example. In Assam, we had a 6-year-long agitation for deportation of foreigners. I think many of the youngsters who are before me today may not realize what was the situation then. Me and many of whom I see in my present, it was very difficult for us to pursue our studies together. We were so interested in protecting our own identity. Now, end of this 6-year agitation, we got an accord. And accord has given rise to a legislation called Citizenship Amendment Act. That is, Section 6A was inserted, whereby it was said that immigrants from Bangladesh who have entered India up to 71 will be dealt with in a particular manner. And those who have entered Assam after 71, they will be detected and deported. Now, we have seen what had happened. Out of that agitation, a regional political party by name Assam was born. And I can say with full conviction, that is one party will betray the people of Assam like anything. There is nothing. Other than the leaders making their own fortune, there is nothing for this state. And as a result, we are suffering today. Added to this is the CAA 2019. And the present move to come up with UCC. How do we indigenous people protect ourselves? Where is this scope? Now, I refer to one passage from a very renowned writer. His name is A.B. Abdul Qadir. He is a professor in a Nigerian university. What he has to say about culture and its invasion by others. He says, culture is regarded as a fundamental to human existence. One of the duties of a state is to protect those values which are fundamental to human existence. Groups must keep in touch with those values and interests and protect them instead of violating them. This means there can be no human welfare and development if cultures are adversely affected. Now you have retained 80 millions of foreigners from 1951 to 71. In return, what you want to give? You have given us one IIT, you have given us one refinery. With this, can we retain our culture? No, we cannot. Therefore, what Professor Abdul Qadir said is, right to culture does not necessarily require government of the country to employ resources to develop a particular culture, but obliges the government to allow people to practice their own culture. Just see how lucidly he has put it. You don't have to put in resources. What you have to do, but obliges the government to allow people to practice their own culture. Now, how can you create a congenial atmosphere for this indigenous group to practice their own culture or to protect or preserve or conserve their identity? There will have be an environment where they will feel safe, where they will have their own political leaders, where they don't have to worry about who they are being ruled by. They must be economically well off. So unless these situations are present, nothing can happen. Now here I will give an example. We often describe the British as plunderers. Correct? To that extent I agree. But I will say with some conviction today, before this August gathering, that British has given us many things. The parliamentary democracy, that today I am wearing a trouser, that I am wearing a shirt, that I am sitting under this hall, these are all contributions of the British, let us not forget. Can you imagine Delhi without there being a Mughal invasion or a British aggression? Just think of Delhi. Without Qutub Minar, without Red Fort, without the Parliament building, without North Block, without South Block, what Delhi has? That old Chandni Chowk. Therefore, some dangerous people are running us, ruling us. Today I'll give you an example. Subhash Chandra Bose, he almost convinced Japan that we'll help you out. Subhash Chandra Bose was busy recruiting people for the INA. That was the time some people who would like to rewrite the Indian history, they were busy in what you know. They were busy in recruiting people for British Army to fight the Second World War. These are the people who often give lecture of Bharat Mata Ki Jai, as if in India nationalists are not there. They often say, in 14 years, in 10 years, we did this, what that government did. Do you know what India was in 1947? And what India, by the time this present regime came into power, India was the 10th largest economy in the world. Therefore, it's not that without anything, that position was attained. Therefore, see, all right, if you have done it wrong, for example, the Assam Accord was signed by a regime whom we criticize. We are also criticizing a regime who is trying to bring in UGC and all these things. Now they are thinking of a majoritarian rule. They are polarizing the society just for the sake of winning an election. Supreme Court has said political expediency cannot be a ground. Today, most of the policies which are being pursued by the present regime is emanating from their political agenda. Supreme Court says this can't be. Now, the other day, our great Ranjan Gogoi has said he has doubt whether the theory of basic structure of India is correct.